Hi YouTube and welcome back to my channel. Today is Vlogmas day 21. It's actually technically day 22, but I'm really late with filming this. Two reasons. One, I couldn't think of a good topic, and number two, I decided to start working on another round of edits on my novel, and I really wanted to get through it because I got feedback from one of my beta readers and my proofreader, and so I wanted to go through all of those all that feedback and make the changes and edits, and then get that off to an editor, because I actually now have a professional editor who's going to take a look at the novel as well, which I had not planned to use a professional editor, but I actually ran into one. He's a moderator in one of the writers groups I'm in Facebook, and he needed some help with websites. He has his own website, and then he's a co-author with another author who also has a website. Both of them needed desperate help with their websites. I took a look, and they were they were in sad, sorry shape. They really were. So I said, look, I've been working with WordPress for 15 years now, and I've been making websites for over 20. So I was like, here, let me step in and do something. What I ended up doing for them was nothing fancy. I didn't do any super fancy things, but I cleaned everything up, made everything more presentable, and just kind of gave them a cleaner, better look. I chose some different templates, a couple of different plugins for them, that kind of thing. So something really basic. So I did that for them, and the one guy he actually does, besides writing his own novels, he does professional editing on the side as well as a source of income, and so he's going to edit my novel in exchange for doing the two websites. So that was a nice fair trade between the two of us. It's because he really needed help and he couldn't afford to hire a professional. And you know, for people for the web analytics stuff that I do, I actually don't even charge $100 an hour. I charge $95 an hour for that. And most professional web designers and that kind of thing, they're charging $150 plus an hour very often, if they're really good. If you're finding someone who's charging $50 or less an hour, they're probably just starting out and are probably not as talented. Now when it comes to web design, I'm probably at the 50 to 75 an hour mark, to be perfectly honest, just because I haven't done it professionally for others that much. Not since, gosh, 2005, 2008, something like that. I mean, I was already transitioning at my old job from doing the actual website layout and design and all the HTML and all that stuff to doing the web analytics for my team when I was still at the tech company I was at. Yeah, I'm a little bit rusty, but when working with WordPress, like I said, I've been working with WordPress for forever now, and I know my way around a good WordPress file, and it was actually a little bit of a challenge. There was actually one template that I thought was absolutely perfect for the one author, and the only downside to it was that all of the links, when you highlighted over them, turned yellow, like a dark yellow gold color. And his logo and his branding is all purple. And I'm like, well, it would look better if they were purple. So I dug through all of the back-end coding and the CSS and everything, trying to change all the links to purple, and nothing I did worked. And it turns out that the master control CSS that was built into the theme, where the certain colors, like they were just kind of hard-coded and locked in, was in a CSS file that was under an admin folder that was not accessible just through the WordPress interface. So I actually had to download all of the PHP and the CSS files and go in and physically write the code to change that. It's like, oh, okay. Thankfully, I know how to do that, and I know how to do that without breaking the whole thing. So that was about the most complicated thing I did with that. Anyway, so finished working on those edits, got the novel off to the professional editor, and hopefully once he's done with it, I have to just go through and just approve or disapprove any changes he makes. And then hopefully at that point I will be ready to start sending it out for queries for agents again. So I thought today I would talk a little bit about, because I've talked about the novel itself and the storyline and all that stuff, but I haven't talked too much about the overall process of trying to get a novel published. So I thought I'd get into that a little bit because it's not like it used to be, or it's not like I thought it was based off of old, outdated information. For example, like back in the day, the authors would, they'd write their manuscript and then they'd shop it around to publishers, and then a publisher thought it was good enough of an idea to publish, they would give the author an advance of sales towards the novel, and then they would hand the manuscript off to an editor. The editor worked for the publisher. Editor would go through it, make sure everything was nice and clean. They give it to a proofreader as well, go through that, make sure all the grammar and spelling was right, and then they would just print and sell the thing, and the publisher would do all the marketing and everything else, and the author would just sit back and start writing the next novel, living off of the advance that they'd gotten, and then of course they get the royalties off of any sales of the books as well. That's sort of what I think most people still think how authors work and publishing works, and it's not like that anymore. It's my understanding that publishers very rarely give advances at all. You just get your royalties and that's it. So, there goes that idea. Then, when it comes to getting published, a lot of the big publishers do not take direct submissions from authors. You actually have to have an agent, kind of like in Hollywood, where an actor needs an agent before they can audition for a role. Well, nowadays, authors need an agent before they can submit their novels to publishers, and the agent will do the submitting for you. So first you have to sell yourself to agents, and you have to make sure that they're the right agents. So there's hundreds and hundreds of agencies out there, literary agencies. And of those agencies, you have to go through each one of their agents, and then they might have anywhere from 3 to 10 agents that work at an agency, and make sure that they're interested in the genre that you wrote. I write, my novel is science fiction, and so I'm like, okay, I need to find someone who's interested in science fiction. And so that's one of the things I've gone through, and I've got a list of about 120 agencies. I've submitted to 40 of them and was rejected by all of those so far, and I still have about 80 left to go. So, but I did get some feedback from them that made me go back and revise and edit and make some more changes to the novel, and I think it's now, I think it was a decent story before. I think it's an even better story now. The core of the story is still the same. It's just I've improved the bits and pieces that tie the story together, if that makes any sense. But anyway, so yes, so I need an agency. That's the thing is that's my process right now. Is process number 1 is submit to agencies, or it's called a query. So you have to send a query letter along with a sample of your work, preferably also a synopsis of the work, and the synopsis has to be anywhere from 120 to 350 words long, and each agency has their specific unique requirements, and so you kind of have to adapt as you go and have various different versions of things available to submit to agencies. So I've already done that with the first 40, and I've kind of tweaked and improved how I do my queries each and every time, especially with the feedback I keep getting back and things, so that helps. So yes, agency. And then if I can't find an agency to represent me, if I go through every single agency in the US and they have, no interest in my work just because it's the wrong, and that's the tricky thing when you get a rejection, is it doesn't necessarily mean they think your writing is bad. It could very well mean that they just have too many other novels on their list, or the subject of my novel, even though it's sci-fi, may not be something that that particular agent feels confident that they can promote, or is just not a topic that, you know, a subgenre that they're interested in, based off of the kind of story I've written. And so just because they reject you doesn't mean it's a bad story or it's badly written. There's any number of factors, and the thing is, they won't tell you exactly the reason they're rejecting it. They'll just say, sorry, it's just not a good fit for us, and leave it at that. So then, if I go through all of the agencies and I can't find an agent to represent me, then I can approach, or my plan is to approach smaller publishers, the ones that don't require agents to represent you, that you can submit directly to. I don't know, I have not put together a list of how many those are, but it won't be any of the large publishing houses like Random House or Del Rey or any of the big well-known ones, Penguin Books, those kind of things. And so I would have to go with someone smaller, which may or may not be fine. And you have to be careful if you're at all interested in writing a novel and stuff, is that there are companies out there that are known as vanity publishers. They will not call themselves a vanity publisher, but a vanity publisher, it's basically like selling a self-publishing service to you, where they ask you to pay them to print your book, and that's about it. And that's literally all they will do. And in some cases, they won't even do that much. They'll just take your money and run. So there's a lot of scam artists out there. So that's one of the things that I've been made aware of, that I've got to be careful of if I do start looking at actual publishers, but smaller publishers, that I don't get reeled in by a vanity publisher. And the big red flag is, oh yes, you know, send us your manuscript and $1,500 and we'll look at it. Yeah, if they ask you for a penny, just even a penny, it's going to be a big, huge no, thank you. Because if they ask you for money, that means that they are not gonna, they're just providing a self-publishing service. And that's not the way self-publishing should work. And that's actually the third option that I'm considering. So if I don't find an agent and I don't find a smaller publisher, then I call it a last resort, but for some people it's a first resort, I'm going to go ahead and self-publish. I did that with my children's book that I've talked about before. I self-published that through Amazon, and did as much promotion as I could on it. I still haven't sold very many copies, but it's a children's picture book aimed at you know, pre-kindergarten kids. So, you know, it's a niche market, and it's not a market I know how to market to. I know more how to market to adults and techies and geeks and things. So I'm not surprised that my marketing efforts there failed. You know, I try to market basically moms or stay-at-home dads, or, you know, anyone who has kids, grandparents, that kind of thing. Those are the people I was trying to target to get the book, and I don't know. It just didn't work very well. So, but I could self-publish. And then if you actually do self-publish and you use something like CreateSpace or Lulu or any one of the actual self-publishing services out there, again, you don't pay them to publish you. What happens is you upload all your files, and with a children's book, I didn't do an ebook version, I only did a print version. Whereas with this novel, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to do an ebook version for Kindle as well as a paper print. And you basically upload your files, you get your interior files for the book, and then you have a cover for the book. And you have to have two separate files for that. So I'll need to make sure that I have cover art, and I'm actually already engaging with an artist who has done a lot of artwork for me for my fan fiction stories. And I'm like, you know what, she could probably do a decent job at the cover art for my sci-fi novels as well. So I'm going to work with her to give me the artwork, and then I have a background in graphic design anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and design the cover on the you know, because you have to, you know, choose the right fonts and everything, and put the title on there, put put the author's name on there. You know, make sure you have the right information on the spine of the book, and then you have to have your blurb on the back of the book, along with, you know, the ISBN numbers and just all of the little details like that. That's the graphic design of it. So I'll have the artwork underneath, and I'll put all the other stuff on top of it, and then I'll just provide that to CreateSpace. I'll probably use CreateSpace for it. CreateSpace and Kindle, so basically Amazon. And then once I do all of that, then basically what happens is you set up where you want your publishing and distribution to happen, and set the price of the book in terms of, and it'll tell you how much royalties you'll earn. It'll tell you like what's the minimum price you can charge in order to just sell the book, and then how much you will earn from it. And if you set it at the minimum, you earn 0. If you know, so you usually want it to set it for $2 or $3 above the minimum. That's what I did with the children's book. I'm charging $10 for the children's book, and I'm earning $2 per sold copy. And of that $2, I split that 50-50 with the illustrator, so I make $1 a copy of the book. So royalties, yay! This is not a business where I'm gonna be getting rich from, and you know, which is perfectly fine. My actual thought in terms of trying to earn money from my writing, because I've done a lot of writing, and most of it's fan fiction, and I understand with fan fiction, there's copyright things, and you really shouldn't be earning money from it, and I completely agree with that. And so I'm like, okay, I just post all that stuff online and let people read, and I've got quite a following, quite a few people who enjoy my fan fiction. And you know, admittedly, a lot of my fan fiction includes erotic scenes, smut, basically. I write a lot of smut, but I don't write, I mean, okay, I have written a number of stories where it's, you know, just 2,000 or 3,000 words, and it's just smut, pretty much. There's very little, if any, plot around it whatsoever. Whereas my novel length stories, where I do still have scenes of smut and sex in them, but you know, it's anywhere from 40 to 80,000 words, and there's maybe 3 sex scenes in the whole thing. So there's a whole lot of plot with a little bit of sex. And so, and those seem to be some of my more popular works in terms of the fan fiction. And so I was thinking that I might actually just go ahead and start trying to self-publish some what's known as erotic romances. So it's not... there's, you know, all these different genres and subgenres and everything else. And apparently one of the subgenres under romance is erotic romance, which is differentiated from erotica, because apparently with erotica, it's just like sex, 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 and almost no plot. But it could still be, you know, 20,000 words, 50,000 words, whatever, but it's just basically all sex. One scene leads to another scene of sex. Whereas with erotic romance, you can actually have a story where you're building a romance, you're building a relationship, you're trying to get the characters to fall in love with each other, and then of course you'll have your erotic moments in there, because where I don't want to necessarily write a romance and not depict the physical intimacy. I mean, you can and just kind of fade to black before any kind of penetration happens and that kind of stuff. But you know what? I really like writing the full-on graphic sex scenes. They're a lot of fun to write, and they're a lot of fun to read. But at the same time, there's a certain level of intimacy that can be added and can be shown in scenes like that can further along the story as well. And so that's my goal. And so I've actually started writing one already, and those novels, one, I'm going to write those under a pseudonym, under a different name than my own. Not because I'm ashamed that I'm writing them, but I want to keep my science fiction, if it gets published, separate from any erotic romance that I'm writing. I don't want the audiences, I mean, because the science fiction, I'm aiming at a general audience, which means that there could be younger readers who enjoy it, And I don't want them to say, oh, here's another book from the same author, and then it's just full of smut. Because there's a good reason to keep them separated and have different names on them. And in fact, I've the name I've decided to use as my pseudonym for the erotic stuff is Grayson Bell. It's going to be gay erotica, so or gay erotic romance, and so I've thought using a male name. And no, that's not going to be my male name if I do start transitioning to male. I'm gonna stick to being Gabby regardless, because I'm a Gabby person, as you can tell from my videos. So, but yeah, that's the plan, is to write some erotic romances, and I'm just gonna do straight to Kindle self-publish. I'm not even gonna bother trying to find a publisher for those. And if they do well enough on Kindle, maybe I'll also throw them onto CreateSpace and do print versions. So my illustrator, who's been doing my fanfiction art, she can also provide me cover art for any printed novels, erotic novels that I write. Because that's mainly the art that she's provided me. I mean, it hasn't been super erotic, but it has been romantic and two men kissing and that kind of thing. So, which is exactly the kind of artwork I would want to put on an erotic romance novel. So, so we'll see how that goes. And that, I think the erotic romances, because, well, sex sells, right, has a better chance of providing me some kind of an income than the sci-fi. I mean, the sci-fi might take off and people might really enjoy it, and that's awesome and amazing and everything. And I do have, you know, a gay couple basically as the protagonists in that story, but no sex. There is a subplot of romance in the story, but I decided no sex. I hint at it. Obviously, they actually get married in the novel, and they have a wedding night. But there's a fade to black, and if, you know, I don't even go there. I mean, they barely even kiss. In the first novel, and in the second novel, there's a couple of hints here and there that, you know, that they enjoy each other's company, obviously, but I don't really bring it up very much. They're just really good together, and they just have a lot of good chemistry together from the way I've written them, and I'm really happy with how the relationship evolved as I wrote them together. And so, you know, obviously that's going to continue throughout the rest of the novels, but it's always going to be a subplot there, that they're bonded, they're mates, they're partners. There is actually a little bit of a sci-fi connection between them in terms of how they got bonded and everything, and the fact that they now have a telepathic link between them. So I got some cool sci-fi going on with that. And so you know, the romance part is really secondary to the whole relationship, but it helps bridge the gap in terms of some of the stuff we learn about the elves, and then what we later learn about the humans and things. So there actually is a plot device behind them being romantically entangled. So it's not just there because I wanted it to be there. So anyhow, yes, with all the novels. So that's kind of like where I'm planning to go with everything with my novels and stuff. I mean, regardless of what happens, my novels are going to get published. Both the sci-fi and the erotic stuff, everything else, it's going to be out there. And when it is, regardless of how it gets out there, I will make, obviously, a blog and tell everyone about it, because I will be very excited and I will be very proud of the fact that it's out there. So stay tuned for all that. Alright, so thanks for listening to this rather long-winded rant again, and until tomorrow, take care. Bye-bye.